Cry Wolf Cottage, Episode 1. The Girl Who Isn't Missing. In my experience, when people go missing, it usually goes one of two ways. Noisily, with broken windows, blood where blood shouldn't be found, a door left swinging idly on a splintered doorframe. The kind of thing that attracts sirens and headlines. Or quietly, like fog melting into the sea. A chair left warm, a coffee cup still full, a broken appointment. Individually the signs might seem innocuous, but together, well. Edward Granger went quietly. The last time anyone saw him, he was walking the cliff path near his house on the Suffolk coast. Coat open to the wind, one hand trailing the white picket fence that ran across the edge. He walked there most mornings. It was part of his ritual. He made coffee in one of those hourglass contraptions, all glass and ceremony like the process mattered more than the outcome. Then he'd head out, leaving both his coffee and his thoughts to percolate, hoping they'd both be strong enough to make it through the day. Only that morning, he didn't come back. No note, no suitcase, no arguments. Just cold coffee and questions. And the house. It was beautiful from the road, the sort you'd see on a seaside postcard. But get up close to it, close enough to smell the damp, and it looked like a decaying shell held together by bitterness and ivy. That ivy coiled tightly around the brickwork. It infested every window frame. It wasn't a decoration, it was a strangulation. You could see where the bricks had shifted through its grip, a desperate act to try and breathe. I questioned, though, whether the house was a victim being held in place, or a monster being restrained. I didn't live there. I didn't know him. I wasn't from that town. But when I read the small square-inch cutout from a local newspaper, a name, a photo of a smiling man 10 years out of date, and the text, no signs of foul play, presumed voluntary disappearance. They even wished him the best of luck. I could not leave it alone, so I looked into it. I went around and asked questions, stuck my nose where it wasn't meant to be. I assumed they thought I had a badge in my pocket in a department behind me. I didn't correct them. But the longer I spent looking into this case, the more it felt like the case was looking back into me. And when it ended... The place I live in now is far away from there. The stone is different, but it's still an old cottage with more character than structural integrity. There can be something grounding about an old home. A safety that's established through time. It doesn't have an official name, but everyone around here calls it Cry Wolf Cottage, named to make fun of the paranoid guy who lives there. He's never seen outside, and his main interactions are with the police or letters to the local press. Back when either of those would give him the time of day. When I called last week, I could hear the receptionist's eyes roll through the phone line. I wonder if she even bothered to write a note before dismissing it. Which is when I started this recording. I took the name given to insult me and I made it my own, which is why you're listening to Cry Wolf Cottage. I think it's to document the investigations, both of them. What happened then and happened now. But for all I know, it could be a cry for help, or a confessional, or simply an attempt to make enough noise, so that if the worst happens, I don't go quietly. I saw that girl twice last week. She was wearing a bright yellow raincoat, brand new, the kind of thing that catches sun like foil. The day was hot though. No cloud in the sky. One of those baked, windless afternoons that never calls for a raincoat. Maybe that's why she stood out to me so much. Or maybe... I've been here a long time. Long enough to know the rhythms of this village. The people. There's an old woman who goes out walking every day with 2 leads, but only 1 dog. She always seems to meet the same gentleman at the corner by the postbox. He doesn't have a dog, but he does always seem to have a pocket full of treats. There are 2 neighbours who take the rubbish out at the same time. Any other day they pass each other on the streets and they're like strangers. But on midnight they slip into conversation like they're lifelong friends. I notice things like that. Not because I want to necessarily, but because observing is what I've always done. The second and last time I saw the girl in the yellow raincoat, she was being dragged across the field behind my house. Dragged by a man so drenched in shadow that even the security light wouldn't touch him. I couldn't see his face, but when he turned towards me, there was no surprise, no fear, no concern that he'd been witnessed. But there was recognition. There was something else in that look, something I didn't understand at the time. Something that kept me awake for nights afterwards, and only now when I say this, I realize what it was. And I know it sounds crazy. We don't use that word. But I know it sounds unlikely. He was expecting me.